Sometimes success is achieved through dominance, other times it's head-to-head, and a rare few times things just fall right into place. When it comes to Suzuki's time in MotoGP, all of the just mentioned circumstances were the case at least once. Though remaining the underdog for large parts of history, they've also become a fan favorite, as the smallest of the giants made his presence felt when it really mattered. Let's look back at the history of Suzuki in MotoGP and see what makes them so special. 1962 was the first year in which the 50cc World Championship was held. After the recent successes of Honda in the 125 and 250 classes, Suzuki set their eyes to compete on the world stage as well. That was around the time when the saying "win on Sunday, sell on Monday" was established. So showing the world that you, as a manufacturer, manufactured the best performing bike was the best advertisement of its time. The factory from Hamamatsu wanted a piece of the cake and got their hands on the German rider Ernst Degner. Degner was already fighting for the 125 championship in 1961 and had a really good chance of winning the title. In the second to last race of this year's championship, he failed to score any points due to an engine failure. After the engine failure, he just left the bike and disappeared from the spot. Ernst Degner was a citizen of East Germany, and a few weeks prior to the Swedish GP in 1961, the Berlin Wall was built. So political tension in his area was quite high, especially since he was a public figure that represented a country on the world stage. During 1961, he managed to get a self-built bike out of MZ parts over to West Germany, while his mechanic and friend Paul Petri packed Degner's wife and sons in the trunk of his car, also taking them to West Germany. Meanwhile, Paul Petri also got in contact with the team manager of Suzuki, therefore securing his friend a racing career after escaping the holds of East Germany. So for 1962, thanks to Paul Petri and Ernst Degner, Suzuki acquired the knowledge, prototype and rider for the inaugural 50cc World Championship. And in that season, the Japanese factory won its first World Championship in its first attempt. In the 50cc class, Suzuki would repeat their World Championship successes in 5 out of the following 6 years. They also jumped into the class of 125s, winning the world title 3 times, thanks to the riders Hugh Anderson and Dieter Braun. By the mid-70s, Suzuki said screw it and focused on the Premier class. So much so that by 1976, they've basically built the only viable bike to compete on that level. As in 1976 and 77, the 500cc title would go to Barry Sheene, who became the factory's most valuable rider. In the following years, the Hamamatsu factory was the Goliath in the 500cc World Championship. At the same time, Yamaha acquired a Goliath in Kenny Roberts to ride on their David. In 1981, they returned to their glory as Marco Lucchinelli secured the 500cc title, whose success was repeated by Franco Uncini in the following year. But then, Honda and Yamaha found their footing again, while Suzuki lost theirs. After an 11-year championship drought, Suzuki finally reigned victorious once again. But the 1993 season wasn't all just glory. Actually, it's one of the most heartfelt and emotional championships in the history of the sport. After Wayne Rainey dominated from 1990 through 1992, he was on a good run, and it looked like he could become the world champion for the 4th time in a row. And the man on board the Suzuki was his main rival, a rivalry that traced all the way back to their superbike years in 1980s America. Just like the previous years, Schwantz and Rainey were in a close fight for the championship in 1993. Towards the end of the season at the Italian GP in Misano, Rainey crashed out while leading the race, sliding towards the gravel, and once he reached the deeply furrowed gravel, it catapulted him into the air, causing him to flip multiple times until his body finally came to a stop. A stop he could never get up from on his own. The crash left Rainey permanently paralyzed. Therefore, Kevin Schwantz became world champion in a way nobody really wanted it. but there it was again. A world championship in the hands of Suzuki that will be remembered forever. After Kevin's title, the 500cc class basically only knew one world champion for a couple of years, as Mick Doohan dominated Grand Prix racing on his Honda NSR 500. By the time they started racing in the new millennium, a lot of things in the MotoGP grid have changed. Doohan, Schwantz and Gardner retired, Alex Barros became an occasional surprise candidate for a win, so did Norik Abe, whilst Capirossi, Biaggi and Valentino Rossi moved their way up from the 250s. During Doohan's championship years, his teammate Alex Crivier was always more or less behind him, especially in 98. And in 1999, when Doohan hung up his boots, Crivier crowned himself world champion. So for the season of the year 2000, fans obviously expected a similar striking force from Crivier. But when the season came, he just couldn't get along with the Honda. And with all the Goliaths out of the way, Kenny Roberts Jr. and his Suzuki welcomed the new century with an heroic underdog story. Despite only winning 4 out of the 16 races that season, he clinched the title ahead of the rookie Valentino Rossi on a slowly improving Honda. So again, it was the perfect circumstance that gave a rider that wasn't supposed to win championships on a bike that finished 9th place just 2 years ago, that one feeling that if you pour your heart and soul into something, you can achieve it. And the following year, things were back to normal. The best Suzuki finished 9th, and Kenny Roberts Jr., the world champion, entered the season in 11th place. So looking back, it makes that season, just like the one in 93, stick out due to the circumstance and hard work, and it's just one of the most fascinating years to look back on. 2020 was a year full of surprises, and due to everything going on with the pandemic, the MotoGP World Championship was quickly turned into an isolated European Championship. Which was the obvious thing to do, since basically all the riders live in Europe. The prior decade was almost completely dominated by one man. He just finished off the prior decade with one of the most, if not the most, successful season performances since Giacomo Agostini in 1972. The only comparable year would be 2002, where Valentino Rossi won 11 out of 16 races. To be fair, none of these are actually really comparable. We just knew that we were witnessing generational talent becoming a world champion for the 8th time. And all that in a manner we might never get to see again. In 2020 it was again due to bittersweet circumstance that would eventually give Suzuki the upper hand. They had a good bike, not the best. They had good riders, not the best, but they had all the pieces to the puzzle. See, when I say circumstance, I'm saying that even without everything going on around the world outside of motorsport in 2020. It was the beginning stage of a shift that we are now, in 2026, seeing the tail end of. The old generation either phased out completely or just wasn't competitive anymore. Lorenzo gone, Pedrosa gone, Rossi at 41 no longer up there, Dovi no longer up there, at least not consistently. And at the same time a bunch of new and hungry guys came in, like Joan Mir, Franco Morbidelli, Alex Rins, Fabio Quartararo, Pecco, but not just a new generation of riders came in. The bikes themselves were also of a new generation. Ever since Ducati came up with their aerodynamically optimized bike in 2016, and also a change in the regulations regarding electronics, bike development has drastically shifted towards creating mechanical grip and high-speed stability through aerodynamic penetration. Ducati probably had the best bike, but their riders didn't perform anymore. Suzuki had a proper package that was still moving forward, while having riders that were also constantly getting better. And Honda, while not having the best bike, they definitely had the best rider. The only man who could stop number 93 was number 93 himself. And in the first race of the 2020 season, 93 stopped himself. The only guy that could tame the Honda and push it to the front of the field got severely injured and missed the rest of the season. All that gave Suzuki, who had just 2 bikes on the grid, their best season since 1977, as both of the riders ended the year in the top 3 in the final standings, with Joan Mir, who was just in his 2nd year in MotoGP, clinched the World Championship. He only had 1 race win this season, which to this day is still his only one, but constant podium finishes with inconsistent results by his rivals were enough to eternalize his name on the greatest trophy of them all. While Mir couldn't defend the title in 2021, he still managed to land on P3 in the final standings, proving just how solid the Suzuki was. In 2022, Suzuki announced that they were ending their current MotoGP project after the end of the season. And with the dropping of that news, so did the consistency of Joan Mir, who then also crashed and got injured, while towards the tail end of the season, Alex Rins proved once again that the Suzuki package was too good to be discontinued. Rins reigned victorious in a tight fight in Phillip Island and in the final race of the season, therefore also Suzuki's final MotoGP race. Oh, and one little thing that I stumbled across that I just thought was funny and didn't do any deeper research on is the Suzuki market cap correlated with their success in MotoGP. This spike was just after they became MotoGP World Champions in 2020, and this drop was just after they announced their departure after the end of the season. And this spike was just a couple days after Alex Rins won Suzuki's final race in MotoGP. I just thought it was funny. In late 2024, Toshihiro Suzuki explained that they might return to MotoGP at some point. But they first want to get the models they sell aligned again to have something to appeal to everyone. But if your motorsport horizon doesn't end in MotoGP, you know that the brand is also present in other ventures such as Supercross or Endurance. And in both examples they are really successful, as Ken Roczen won the Supercross championship just earlier this year, and in the EWC, the Suzuki team secured the World Championship in 2024, whilst finishing runner-up in 22, 23 and 25. They are also competing in the Superbike Championship, but in the sport bike category, with their relatively new GSX-RR. So I think it's just a matter of time until they return to the greatest stage of them all. Thanks everyone for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.
Bye-bye.